Despite his business acumen, Guzman is not always successful at staying ahead of the law.
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're looking at crime syndicate leaders who were confirmed to be active in their organizations even while behind bars.
Esos crímenes dentro de la catedral ya eran inconcebibles.
Salvatore Riina, the Sicilian Mafia. In 1986, the Maxi trial in Palermo handed Salvatore Toto Riina a life sentence in absentia.
Salvatore Toto Riina, one of the most violent and feared godfathers in the history of the Sicilian Mafia. The farmer's son from the town of Corleone took control of the Cosa Nostra in the 1970s and ruled with an iron fist for almost 2 decades.
It would be nearly 7 more years before the Sicilian Mafia chief was captured, but this would not be the end of his notoriously cruel rampage. The detained Riina and other bosses ordered a series of terrorist attacks to assassinate or intimidate witnesses.
Sostiene che la mafia si uccide, fa guerra fra di loro, quindi se io non faccio parte di un clan, non temo, non rischio nulla, non devo temere nulla dalla mafia. In realtà a quel punto Toto Riina cambia la strategia, attacca direttamente lo Stato ed è lì che anche la gente comune si accorge, si rende conto di essere in pericolo veramente.
He also ordered more strategic hits, including the kidnapping and eventual murder of an informant's 12-year-old son. Riina's criminal career finally came to an end when he was moved to solitary confinement for the remainder of his life. Until then, the brutality that could only be contained by extreme measures earned him the nickname La Belva, the Beast.
Caught on wiretap in early 2017, Riina made clear his reflections on a life of crime, saying he regretted nothing.
Raffaele Edmond, Independent. Drug kingpin Raffaele Edmond III was key to the expansion of the crack epidemic into Washington, D.C.
When crack was the hustle here in the nation's capital back in the 1980s, nobody, absolutely nobody, worked harder than Raffaele Edmond III.
The resulting violence earned the city the reputation as the murder capital of the U.S. Edmond's conviction in 1990 merely provided business opportunities. He collaborated with fellow high-profile inmates at the Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary to continue trafficking. When he was caught in 96, 30 years were added to his life sentence.
When it was over, the punishment for the convicted 24-year-old Raffaele Edmond included 2 life sentences with no chance of parole.
Though the oversight and this gesture were scandalous, Edmond became a government informant to protect his mother. After multiple arrests and years in witness protection, he died shortly after being released in 2024. Despite some good coming out of Edmond's second downfall, there's no accounting for the damage he caused even locked away.
Raffaele Edmond was for a long time a government informant, and his information helped to put other drug dealers here in D.C. behind bars. And yet, guys, when he left prison, he did not do so under an assumed name or in the witness protection program.
Lawrence Bishnoi, Bishnoi Gang. Much of the story of the Bishnoi Gang takes place behind bars. The namesake was a petty criminal who cultivated connections in jail in the early 2010s. By the time he was finally sent to prison in 2014, Lawrence Bishnoi had built an empire well beyond Punjab. He then continued to lead some 700 associates in international smuggling, murder, and political corruption. He became something of a celebrity in 2018 when he made a press statement threatening actor Salman Khan outside of a courthouse. Continued operations even after multiple transfers have not curbed that hubris. Once an ambitious student from an affluent family, Bishnoi is an alarming testament to what a great mind is capable of in prison. Vincent the Chin Gigante, the Genovese crime family. This low-level enforcer was in and out of jail before his 1959 conviction only strengthened bonds with cellmate Vito Genovese, the mentor he aided in his takeover of the Luciano family 2 years prior.
Convicted mobsters are expected to do their time and remain silent. If Gigante served his time and kept his mouth shut, he would be rewarded after his release. It was up to Gigante to figure out how to avoid future arrests.
Vincent the Chin Gigante went on to become a powerful New York boss who evaded trial with public displays of mental unfitness.
He's said to be one of the most powerful mobsters in America. His lawyers say he's insane, but tonight it appears Gigante will finally be brought to justice.
After the ruse fell apart in 1997, he continued to run the Genovese crime family from prison. Andrew Gigante acted as his father's attaché until they were both indicted on racketeering and obstruction charges in 2002. The Chin's shocking guilty plea formally put an end to a criminal career that spanned decades and sometimes thrived in prison.
Finally admitting in court that he had been faking insanity the entire time.
Carmine Persico, the Colombo crime family. Nicknamed Immortal, Carmine Persico was practically unstoppable as boss of the Colombo crime family.
Instead of creating a dynasty, He unleashed a debacle. He virtually destroyed the family.
He was believed to still be in charge after he began his tenure in prison in 1973, before receiving a permanent sentence in '86. Persico collaborated with John DeRoss then, and after the latter's release in the wake of the Third Colombo War. What followed was years of power struggles and restructuring under Persico's supervision.
The verdicts ensured that Carmine Persico would never again be a free man. But being behind bars didn't mean giving up control of the family.
A government informant even testified that he took contracts out on the FBI agents and prosecutors responsible for his imprisonment. Though the open secret of his influence reportedly declined through the years, Persico was the official boss of the Colombo family from 1973 to his death in 2019.
That's Carmine's MO. Carmine never relinquished control, whether he was in prison, whether he was on the lam, or in the courtroom representing himself. It was all Carmine's way.
Raffaele Cutolo, the NCO. Raffaele Cutolo's run with Neapolitan street gangs ended when he was incarcerated for murder in 1963. That was really just the beginning of his criminal career. The young rogue's charisma and business instincts cultivated a huge following among inmates. As they carried Cutolo's influence beyond prison, the Nuova Camorra Organizzata became one of the most sophisticated and powerful syndicates in Italy. But after the organization was devastated by gang wars, Cutolo was effectively removed from his network after being transferred in '93. By then, his defiance of the penal system was so notorious that it inspired the fictional novel and film The Professor, titled after Cutolo's nickname. The true story is a chilling enough portrait of a violent mastermind with nothing to lose. Anthony Gaspipe Casso, the Lucchese crime family. Even for New York organized crime, Lucchese underboss Anthony Gaspipe Casso was considered sadistic.
Gaspipe Casso had a reputation in organized crime of being crazy.
I wanted to beat him with the gun after it was empty.
And to be considered crazy in organized crime is a major achievement.
That came back to haunt him after his arrest in 1993. While detained at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, Casso arranged escape plans and hits. His orders became so reckless that the family ultimately severed ties. Casso thus became an informant for the FBI to protect himself at many colleagues' expense.
He was a persona non grata. Nobody in the family would lift a finger to help him. What was his recourse? One thing, come a rat.
However, the plea deal was nullified by his lack of honesty and cooperation with authorities, as well as continued criminal activity. Casso was sentenced to 455 years in prison in '98, having burned all his connections by trying to keep them inside. He died in 2020 after failing to secure compassionate release.
The key to the kingdom is to tell the truth. And if you decide to lie, then all bets are off.
Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the Sinaloa Cartel. The legend of Joaquin Guzman's power was cemented by his stints in prison.
To many in Sinaloa, El Chapo is not just a drug trafficker. He's a hero. They see him as a modern-day Robin Hood.
His leadership of the Sinaloa cartel made him one of the world's most powerful criminals before he was sent to prison in Mexico in 1993. There, El Chapo delegated his organization to greater power and enjoyed a lavish lifestyle by bribing guards. They eventually let him walk out of prison in 2001.
How he escaped remains a little murky. The official version, and the one recounted by most journalists, is that he was rolled out in a laundry cart by a lower-ranking prison official.
He was arrested again 13 years later, detained under strict security, and escaped again through a tunnel. His 2016 arrest and subsequent extradition to U.S. federal custody finally put an end to his influence. El Chapo's story being unlike any in organized crime, it took a lot to truly lock him away.
Nobody's ever broken out of the Supermax prison here in Colorado since opening in 1994, known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies. This airtight penitentiary has housed the worst of the worst, including billionaire cartel kingpin Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, like the rest here, segregated and on permanent lockdown 23 hours a day.
Charles Lucky Luciano, the Luciano crime family. In 1936, the boss of the Luciano family seemingly ran out of luck when he was sentenced to up to 5 decades in prison.
Under Luciano, the Mafia grew to be bigger than General Motors. And by the time he'd finished, the mob was raking in $40 billion a year.
In fact, Charles Lucky Luciano's influence went a long way over the next decade. He made orders through acting bosses and acquired luxurious amenities, including a personal chef.
Although Luciano remained the boss, Frank Costello, a highly regarded and well-known figure in New York's underworld, took over the day-to-day running of his empire. And Costello continued to bring in millions of dollars and increase the family's fortunes, while his boss planned his next move.
It was only after a failed appeal 2 years later that he stepped down from his position. However, with World War II raging, the Navy tapped Luciano and his organization to help secure the New York waterfront and provide contacts in Sicily. In exchange, Luciano received deportation to and relative freedom in Italy in '46.
Luciano had served just 10 years of his 50-year sentence when he left American shores on February the 10th, 1946. Bound for Sicily.
Even in apparent defeat, the father of the modern mafia was an effective negotiator. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Pablo Escobar, the Medellin Cartel. Pablo Escobar's influence was such that he could control his own downfall in 1991.
Recuerdo doloroso para la historia colombiana, jefe del Cartel de Medellín, uno de los carteles más poderosos que ha tenido no solamente el país y el mundo.
De hecho, él y sus socios consiguieron lo que otras organizaciones delincuenciales jamás han podido hacer.
He negotiated his surrender to the Colombian government on the condition that he would only serve 5 years in a prison he himself designed. Escobar even handpicked his guards at La Catedral, nicknamed Hotel Escobar for its luxuries.
En ese momento estábamos hablando de una guerra sin cuartel en contra de la sociedad colombiana y una oferta de negociación que estaba sujeta a que se le dieran algunos prerequisitos para que el enemigo número uno en ese momento terminara sometido a la justicia.
The cozy deal required the Medellin cartel leader to cease all criminal activities. But of course, it was business as usual under the security of government corruption. Escobar's official incarceration was really just to prevent extradition to the US and protect him from enemies. Following media reports of torture and murder at La Catedral, Escobar escaped to avoid transfer to a legitimate prison and died in a police pursuit in '93.
Escobar es el perfecto ícono del mal, es tan buen narco que es una máquina de hacer dinero después de muerto.
Who are some other criminals whose influence couldn't be locked up with them? Testify in the comments. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.